Hi, and welcome back to my YouTube channel. In today's 7 tips or less in 7 minutes or less, I'm going to give you 7 tips for how to ace a phone interview. This past summer, I had applied to my first, as I like to call, big girl job in a career that I really wanted that was actually in my field. The position I was applying for was at my undergrad university that I attended for 4 years and graduated from, and I did not get the position. My advisor, who still works there, called me for 2 reasons. One, she was a little upset that I had not called her to practice and speak with her about the position since she works at the company or the university. And she also told me that she heard my interview was, quote, terrible and weak. So to prevent that from happening to you, I want to give you 7 tips that you can do before, during, and after your interview. So there's 2 things you're going to want to do before your interview. That is research and practice. You're going to want to practice talking on the phone. That's my first tip. You're going to want to practice talking professionally on the phone. I talk on the phone at least once a day, if not more. But there's a difference between talking professionally and talking casually. Now, me and my dad don't talk on the phone all the time, so I had him call me as if he were an interviewer, ask me questions, and then he gave me my feedback. There's 2 things that I would have done a little different with this. One is I would have practiced taking notes while my dad was asking me questions, because during the interview I was asked a lot of 2-part questions. And the second thing is I would advise you to possibly actually stay away from family or friends. My dad and I don't talk on the phone, like I said, all the time, but because he is my dad, I wasn't afraid to make a mistake, and if I did, I felt like he would not judge me. But in an interview, that could be the difference between you getting the position or you not getting the position. The second thing you're going to want to do before your interview is you're going to want to do research. You're going to want to do research on the company and the position itself and the type of questions that are asked. Thankfully, I attended my university for 4 years, so I knew a lot about the company, but I didn't necessarily know everything about that specific role. So I did research, I looked at questions that they would ask me during the interview, and I was ready, but I probably could have done a little bit more research. Again, with all these 7 tips, I did most of them, but I could have did it better, if that makes any sense. Now, during the interview, there's 4 things you're going to want to do. First thing I advise is to have your resume, cover letter, job description, and or whatever materials that you had submitted for the position in front of you. And I prefer if you print them, because I did have all the things in front of me. However, they were on my laptop, opened up in multiple tabs. And because of this, it was hard to sift through all 3 of these documents. Had I had them printed out in front of me, laid out, maybe I could have highlighted specific things and they would have been all in front of me. I wouldn't have had to be on my laptop sifting through while being on the phone. My next tip for during your interview is, again, take notes. Have that pen and paper ready. And when I'm talking about paper, I'm not talking about an index card or a post-it note. Have a notebook in front of you ready to write down questions that they're going to ask you. During my interview, which I was interviewed by 3 different people, they asked me multiple 2-part questions. And had I taken advantage of that pen and paper, I might not have forgotten to answer a second part to the questions that they asked me. What had happened is they'd asked me a 2-part question. I was really nervous, and I basically wouldn't even think about what I was going to say and just spit out the first thing that was on my mind. Then I would forget to answer the second part. Then as they're asking me the next question, I remembered that I forgot to answer the second part to the question. And now it was time for me to answer the question that they just asked me that I may not have been paying 100% attention to because I was focused on the last question that they asked me. So again, having a pen and paper in front of you can be so valuable. And while you're doing this, you're going to want to take their contact information down as well, or at least write their names down and look it up later. I did end up forgetting one of my interviewers' names, which was very embarrassing, but we can talk about that in a moment. During the interview, have some water in front of you. You're going to want to have some water just in case you get choked up on your words, or your throat's dry, or you're really nervous. And my last tip for during your interview is you're going to want to be calm and confident. I was so nervous. The room I was in, I was pacing back and forth in the room. Like I said, I was holding my breath because I was so nervous, and then they'd ask me a question, and then I just spit out first thing that was on my mind. I did not take time to think about what I was going to say. I didn't fully listen to the two parts that they were asking, and didn't take advantage of my piece of paper and pen. Had I been calm, relaxed, had time to think, I think my interview would have gone very different. And if I had taken advantage of taking notes, I think my interview would have gone much better. The last thing you're going to want to do is for after your interview. The last thing you should do after your interview is to send a thank you email. This email will make you stand out because not many people send these. In your thank you email, you should thank them for their time, mention something discussed in the interview, and you should also express your interest in the position. Like I said, I had 3 different people that interviewed me, so I sent them each a different thank you email, as well as mention a different thing that each person had brought up during the interview. Since I did forget one of my interviewers' names, which was very embarrassing, I knew one of the females interviewing me, so I asked her who interviewed me, and she told me. And I think, again, had I taken better notes, I wouldn't have forgotten his name. I wouldn't have had to ask her, and who knows, maybe I would have gotten the position. But those are my 7 tips or less in 7 minutes or less for how to ace a phone interview. And as ironic as it is, I actually heard that the position is opening up again. So who knows, maybe I'll get the position this time if I take my 7 tips or less. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and comment. And as always, let me know what you think down below. And I'll catch you next week. Thank you so much. Bye.